Hello, book friends, and welcome back to Books and Tea Time. I'm Addie, and today we are going to be reading a bunch of romance. I decided that I wanted to do a cute little romance reading vlog for Valentine's Day, and because it's also Black History Month and I wanted to spotlight some of the Black authors on my TBR, I decided to pull books from my TBR by Black authors that are in the romance genre. So what are we going to read in today's video? We start off strong with the ebook for Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins, which is the first book in her Levesque series, which follows brothers in this family. Their last name is Levesque, obviously. From there, I listened to the audiobook for The Roommate Risk and The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco by Talia Hibbert. They're books 2 and 3 in her Midnight Heat series. Then from there, we take a dive into the romantasy space and we read Lore of the Wilds by Analeigh Sbrana. Then after that, we listen to the audiobook for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. And we wrap up the video with another Beverly Jenkins and we read the physical book of Forbidden, which is the first book in her Old West series. So we've got a lot of variety when it comes to the romance subgenres. We've got some historical, we've got some romantasy, we've got some contemporary, and I am thoroughly excited to share this video with you because I had a fantastic time reading all of these romance titles. So without further ado, let's get into the content of the video. I'm going to send you back in time to the beginning of this vlog before I read all of these books so that we can read them together, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the first clip of this reading vlog. Happy February, happy Black History Month, happy Valentine's Day to you, my bookish friends. I'm a little far away from the camera today because I am under the weather, let's just say. I caught a nasty little head cold situation, so this vlog is starting a little bit later than I had originally intended, but that's okay. The show must go on, as they say. So I'm here to do my first reading update with you all because I am halfway through my very first book of the reading vlog and I want to keep reading, but I don't want to get too far into it before I update you guys for the first time. I am officially, I think, 45% of the way into the ebook for Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins, and I am having a great time with this one, guys. It's so good. I'm really enjoying myself. I started it actually a few days ago. So yeah, our first book for this reading vlog is Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins, which is a historical romance by one of the absolute queens of historical romance, Beverly Jenkins. She has so many books. I have read one of her books before. I've read the first book in the Destiny series, Destiny's Embrace, and I did like it, but I am so far loving Through the Storm even more than I was, I feel like, at this point when I was reading Destiny's Embrace. So Through the Storm takes place, it opens in the middle of the Civil War in the South. I think we are in Georgia. Our main character, Sable, is a young Black woman who has been enslaved on a plantation in Georgia for her whole life, but as the book is opening and we are in the middle of the Civil War, things are really starting to fall apart in the South. Everybody is pretty much starving, and also because the Union armies are close and because the Union armies are willing to employ freed Black soldiers, a lot of Black folks are emancipating themselves and then going to fight in the Civil War. Really, the first chapter is quite a profound turning point in Sable's life. Her aunt, who is one of the last relatives that she has contact with and who is still alive, is ailing. She's very sick and is probably going to be dying very soon. And so her aunt, as she is on her deathbed, starts telling Sable a lot of things about her past, and you get a lot of information about their ancestry and who the line of women that they came from. And so Sable is absorbing all of this information, and I think it can be a little overwhelming for the reader as well as Sable, is you're both in this position where you're kind of just getting a lot of this really big information sort of dumped on you in this first chapter. So I will say for the first chapter or two, I was a little bit confused, not even confused, but I was just, it can feel very overwhelming and info dumpy at the beginning, but as soon as you get through that first like chapter and a half, the story really comes together and picks up, and it's so fun and engaging. I don't want to say too much about the plot, but circumstances occur through which Sable is able to escape and free herself and go to Atlanta, where she knows there is a regiment of Union troops in a camp that is accepting freed Black folks and giving them employment, and she's hoping to make it there in order to start life anew. She eventually arrives at this camp through the help of a woman that we later find out is Harriet Tubman. And then when Sable arrives at this camp, she meets the very charming, very flirtatious Raymond Levesque, who is a major, I believe, in the Union Army. And so he is from Haiti, but also grew up in Louisiana, and he has been free his entire life, and he and his brothers have all dedicated themselves to the cause of fighting for the Union Army and fighting for the freedom of all Black people. Right away, they have really, really great banter because Raymond is so like flirtatious and confident and sure of himself, like he's never been told no by a woman before, and then Sable comes along and she's like, oh my god, you need to learn to be told no. You need to learn basically that like not everybody is just like falling at your feet and like worshiping you. So Sable really gives him a run for his money right away, which of course he loves. And so then there's like this like push and pull between them as she's staying at this camp. Sable is such a great main character. She's just so kind-hearted and like willing to give everything that she has to help others. Truly such an easy and fun character to root for and just like wanting the best for her. She's confident and like presents as very sure of herself, even though maybe like inside she is like really not sure what is going to happen to her, and like, you know, she's lost so many family members and lost contact with even more, so she feels very isolated and alone when she arrives at this camp. And yet she's like, you know, I am gonna do what I gotta do. She's being paid a wage for the very first time. I also love Raymond though. He is like such a little flirt and a stinker, but in the best way possible. He's very clear to Sable from the beginning, like, I like a challenge. I am gonna keep coming back and trying to win your heart. And she's like, okay, good luck with that. And so just like from the beginning, they have really great chemistry, which I really enjoy. Another thing that I really love about this book is it's really refreshing and interesting to read about this Civil War time period. Beverly Jenkins is so good at giving you information about the war. You've got information about the different kinds of rations that they got in these army camps and like how they made ends meet and made the food like stretch. There's also information about like there's obviously they're not on the front lines, but there are regiments that come back full of injured men who need care, and like Sable sort of taps in as a nurse, and so you're seeing like the reality of how they treated injuries and like amputations. There's also just like little tidbits about Black historical figures that you don't, I think, read about, that is almost certainly whitewashed from historical textbooks. There's references to like certain like laws and bills being passed at the time, and like political maneuverings that are happening in Washington that are affecting the day-to-day lives of soldiers in other parts of the country. Like originally the Union armies would not provide any assurances or safety for the families, the spouses and children of Black soldiers who came to fight for the Union army, but then they would often desert because they had to go back and ensure that their families were safe. And so they eventually built in some sort of structure in order to support the loved ones of Black soldiers so that they would fight. Just like those little tidbits like of information. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I think the mixture of the plot and what's going on, like there's sort of like a mysterious-ish element about Sable's ancestry, and like you're not really sure where that's gonna go, but you know that like we're gonna be following that plot thread throughout the whole book. You've got their romance and these hidden moments that they're able to sneak together, and then you've also got just like all of this rich historical context, these side characters that you're really invested in as well. Like Sable makes friends at this camp, and then at some point she sees her brother. I think I'm gonna spend the rest of the day reading a little bit more. Outside of that, I have already gotten so many more books to read for this vlog. I know that I mentioned in my January wrap up and my February TBR video that I was gonna read Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins, and I do still think that I want to read that, but I also have the audiobook for The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert and the ebook for Lore of the Wilds, which is my romantasy pick. But then also I was just going back through my TBR and thinking of other audiobooks that I could pick up, but I also downloaded the audiobook for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. So if I finish The Roommate Risk really fast, we might pick that one up on audio too. Apologies for all of this that's going on right now, and if this clip didn't make a whole lot of sense, I am gonna go read more, and then hopefully the next time I talk to you, I will be a little more coherent and less congested. Hello, my lovely, wonderful friends. It's the next day, and I'm feeling a little bit more alive today and more of a person and less like a snotty zombie. But I am very excited to report that we have finished the very first book for this reading vlog. I just sat down and finished the last, I think, like 35 to 40% of Through the Storm by Beverly Jenkins, and we are off to a really good start, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I don't want to say too much because I feel like the synopsis that I read is rather vague, but I do think that it suits the story. What I will say is that this story really is broken up into two major sections. And so in the synopsis, I'm gonna say this because it's in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler, but in the synopsis it says that Sable and Levesque meet, and then circumstances occur and she is forced to betray him, the man that she loves. And then, you know, obviously they meet again in the future and have to like reckon with that. So the first half of this book is Sable and Raymond meeting in this camp, and Sable getting used to this new life, and also getting used to the fact that she has just lost her aunt, who was really the last person in her family that she had contact with. She does meet her brother, but then I won't say too much about that, but she basically feels rather alone, and so she's trying to, you know, push through the days, but then she's meeting with Levesque, and he is in very determined pursuit of her affections. And so the first half of this book is them meeting and him sort of courting her, and her like not really wanting anything to do with it at first, but they keep meeting, and she eventually becomes endeared to him, and him to her as well. And so then this circumstance occurs that I won't illuminate too much because it is, you know, a main point of the plot of the book, but she is forced to betray him, and I will leave it at that. But then there's a small time jump, just a few months, I think, and then the second half of the book is everything that happens after, them coming back into each other's lives and having to reckon with this circumstance that caused her to have to betray him, and a lot of just like life unfolding after that. And it was really good. I think that the romance is great. They have a lot of chemistry right off the bat, like I talked about their banter, but even after, you know, this betrayal occurs and then they meet each other again, you can just tell like there's electricity in the room, the tension, you could cut it with a knife, and they just have like these little sort of like inside jokes together, and she does eventually meet his brothers because he's from a very big family, so she gets to meet all of them, and it's just so amazing and sweet to see her being welcomed into this family that's not gonna ever replace the people that she has lost, but she's just so isolated and lonely throughout the book, and you just see her like struggling, and then to be welcomed into this family with such open arms, it's just like, it's everything that she deserves and more, and it's just like really sweet. And I love all of the Levesque brothers, which makes me very excited to continue the series. And again, I cannot say this enough how much I really enjoyed the historical components to this. Just Beverly Jenkins does such a good job infusing the texts with these little snippets and information all throughout that really help to paint a picture of that last year of the Civil War and what immediately follows in the months after, and specifically really highlighting and bringing to the forefront notable Black activists who were doing things specifically in Georgia and Louisiana, because that's where the book takes place, but you're just seeing and hearing all of these accounts woven into the story. And I looked a few of them up just because I was curious, and I think all of the people, not all of the immediate side characters, but a lot of the characters that she weaves into the background of her narrative are real people from history, out there doing the work to house people and clothe people and protect people as the war was raging and also in the immediate aftermath. She just does a really great job of balancing this really tender romance with this strong female lead that has just like such a passion for helping people and such a kind heart, and then also these historical moments. And again, I think it was really fun. My only real critique is I feel like the romance itself, like all of the conflicts and like the tensions of the romance resolve a little bit early, and then the book keeps going. So I would say like around like the 80% mark, I feel like the romance is like very neatly wrapped in its bow, and then like the book kind of keeps going to resolve other plots within the book, which is fine, but I just kind of wish that maybe the romance plot was like stretched out, or like the other part was shortened a little bit, if that makes sense, so that it all felt like it was following the same trajectory. Like I understand like the plot points that happen for like the last 15% are important, but I don't know, it was just like I was enjoying what I was reading, but like after like a lot of their moments get resolved, I was kind of just like, okay, but like what's next? Like what, like we're kind of seeing into the happily ever after part. Of course, then something happens that's not so happy, but you know. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear Alexander screaming in the other room. He's playing Overwatch, so ignore that. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I would say I would give it a strong 4-star, and I'm definitely going to be continuing on with the series. That being said, I am going to pause on my historical romance train right now. I do still really want to read Forbidden because I didn't know this when I originally picked Through the Storm and Forbidden for this video, but Forbidden is about Sable's brother, Rhine. Again, I had no idea until I read the back of Forbidden, and I was like, wait. I know this man. I am still hopefully going to be reading that, but I want to take a short pivot from my historical to start my next ebook and my next audiobook. So I'm going to start the ebook for Lore of the Wilds, and then I am also going to start the audiobook for The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert. Once we finish those, we'll do a vibe check. First book down. I'm feeling productive. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And I'll talk to you probably tomorrow at some point. Peace out. Hello, friends. Happy Tuesday. Let's crack into this LaCroix together, shall we? I have a lot of updates for you because between last night at like 11:45 when I updated you after I finished Through the Storm, I have been reading my dang butt off. So I am 13% of the way into Lore of the Wilds. I'm on chapter 5. I'm reading that on my Kobo. And then I also read the first like 25 to 30% of The Roommate Risk on audio today while I was at work doing like busy work with my headphones on. Let's start with Lore of the Wilds. First impressions, I'm a little bit unsure how I'm feeling about the writing style. I believe this is an adult fantasy, but it is reading a little bit like a YA to me right now. It just feels very rushed. Not like necessarily like it's fast paced, but there's just so much that happens. Like, I read 2 chapters last night, I think, maybe 3, and I was just like overwhelmed with everything that happened so fast. But I am liking it so far, and I'm very intrigued by the plot. So we're following our main character, Lore, who is a human who lives in this human settlement that humans have been trapped in. There's like this like really thick forest around it, and humans have been trapped in for a really long time. As long as she can remember, there's like lore in their community and mythologies about where the humans came from and how they came to be in this world. And so Lore, our main character, works in an apothecary shop with her aunt and her uncle. Outside of this kingdom is ruled by the Fae. So there's like Fae lords. They treat humans like dirt. You know, they don't really care about them or help them at all. There are like Fae sentries that patrol the borders of their settlement that they live in. There's some interesting things. I've got a lot of questions about the timeline of this, like how many generations of people, like of humans, have lived in this tiny settlement and not been able to escape. But more or less the premise is that at the beginning of the book, what I have gathered to believe is like a noble fae or some kind of like rich fae comes to her aunt and uncle's apothecary and says that they want to enlist her to come and catalog this library, this enchanted library that has a spell that makes it so that fae can't enter the library, like it's been cursed for thousands of years. But because Laura's a human and she can read the Fae language, they find out, they enlist her and are like, okay, we'll pay you if you come and go into this library and catalog these like thousands and thousands of books for us because we can't go in there. It's interesting, but everything is moving really fast and I just have a lot of questions and I don't know if I haven't settled myself in the writing style yet or if I'm just like not vibing with it, but tentatively interested in the vibes and what's going on. And I don't know if it's a love triangle situation, but I believe maybe it is based on the cover and the fact that it's a romantasy, but she enlists, supposedly, according to the synopsis, enlists the help of 2 different fae male companions. I haven't gotten to the point where we've met either of them yet, I don't think. So that's where I'm at with that. Unsure, tentatively, we are going to be moving forward. On the other hand, The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert, immediately obsessed. Immediately, I love them both so much. It's so good. I don't know what took me so long. Like, I love the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. It's like one of my favorite romance series ever, if not my favorite romance series ever. I love all 3 of them so much. So I don't know what I was thinking, not just going and reading Talia Hibbert's backlist, because the books that I'm reading right now, I think were written before Brown Sisters trilogy, maybe. Also, The Roommate Risk is actually the 2nd book in a series, but I asked all my friends at work that like we all read books and exchange recommendations. I asked them all to give me one book that they wanted me to read this year for their birthday month. I am just like getting a real head start on all of them, but one of my friends decided that they wanted me to read The Roommate Risk. We're both big fans of Talia Hibbert, so I'm reading this one as per their recommendation. Also, they said the first one is not their favorite, and so they wanted me to start with The Roommate Risk, but yeah, so basically here is the plot. We've got Jasmine and Rahul are the 2 main characters, and they are best friends, and they've been best friends since college. You've got like some dual timelines. You get multiple perspectives. You get both of their perspectives, but also like sometimes in Rahul's perspective, you'll go back like 5 or 6 years when they were in college and first met, and then sometimes his perspective in the present, but Jasmine seems to be always in the present. I don't know if that's just happenstance or if that's like purposeful yet, but basically they've been best friends. He's been obsessed with her the entire time, but like she doesn't date, she doesn't do relationships or commitments, and he really likes her, so he wants to, you know, be in her life, so they decide to just be friends, and then they become best friends. And then at the beginning of the book, Jasmine's apartment, her room in the apartment that she shares with this other girl, gets flooded, and it's gonna take like a month for them to fix it, so she temporarily moves in with her best friend Rahul, and obviously the forced proximity and things start to heat up. And so things were getting a little interesting, if you know what I mean. I was listening to it on my drive home. So yeah, that's where I'm at with both of them. I am gonna eat dinner and then I'm probably going to listen to more of the roommate risk while I do a puzzle later, but making great progress. I will come back on to update you when I have more to say. That's where we're at. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Hello, my darling friends. I have so many updates for you because I finished a book, I started another book, I made progress on a third separate book, so we have a lot to talk about. But first, I want to talk about some goodies that I got at work today. So I work at a library, if you didn't know that, and so we have free bookshelves at the library that people can bring their used books or like unwanted books, obviously not like library books, but any books that they want to donate to us that we can't put in the system. We just like have these little free library style bookshelves that people can put stuff on. And so I was scrambling this morning, running around trying to get ready to start the day, and I walked past the shelf, and what peeks out at me but a copy of a Beverly Jenkins, this gorgeous mass market paperback edition of Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. And I was reading the back because I've seen this cover before, obviously, when I was like looking through her backlist and like picking out titles that I wanted to read. And this book is technically the first book in the Women Who Dare series, but it's also the fourth book in the Levesque series technically because it's about Raymond's younger brother Drake. So I snatched this up. I thought that was such a fun find. This is actually the first one that I own physically, but I would love to collect the mass market paperback editions of these because they're just so darling. Oh, nice large font. I really appreciate that. Look at that font. That's like pretty good for a mass market, I feel like. Anyway, so I snatched that up, and then also we get a lot of puzzles donated to us, and I saw this really nice one. I like when they make them in these like round things. I've seen them at Barnes & Noble, but it's like a 1,000-piece butterfly puzzle. And so I thought this could be my next one. I'm currently finishing up a Beauty and the Beast puzzle, but I have been puzzling so much recently, and it is like the perfect thing to do while I'm listening to audiobooks, so I wanted to have that on deck. So those were the gifts from the universe this morning. Updates though. Okay, first things first, I finished the audiobook for the roommate risk a couple hours ago, and it was so much fun. I loved it so much. It's really not that long. I think it was like 9 hours on an audio, and like it gets into the plot right away, but I really loved it. I thought that Jasmine and Rahul were such great characters, and I love a friends to lovers story, and also like the forced proximity of them like having to live together while she's staying with him. Talia Hibbert is just, she's so good at romance in general, but I feel like she is just so good at writing the friends to lovers trope. Like, it's what I love about Dani Brown so much. Take a Hint, Dani Brown, which is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. It's one of my favorite romance books of all time, and this one was giving that same energy. It was nice and fast and fun and flirty and spicy and just like exactly what I wanted. The perfect contemporary romance. I think I would give it like a 4.5 stars. I really did like it. I think I wanted a little bit more of like the sort of exploration, specifically for Jasmine, the exploration into like the things from her past and like the how they are bleeding into her present and how they're like creating barriers for her in feeling comfortable pursuing a committed relationship. I think that you do get some of it, but because the book is so short, I feel like you just don't get a whole lot of that. So I think that's like the one thing that I was like wishing that there was a little bit more of. Overall, it was such a good book, and naturally, because I have no self-control and am obsessed, I immediately went on to Libby to see if the audiobook for the third one in the series, the Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, was available, and it was, so I immediately borrowed it and started it, and I am 17% of the way through the audiobook for that one. So the Fake Boyfriend Fiasco opens with our main characters Aria and Nick. And so Aria is a tattoo artist, and at the beginning of the book her friend is just getting married, and so they're in this like really fancy hotel, and Nick is a recently retired football or soccer player who his parents own the hotel that the wedding is at, and they kind of like run into each other by happenstance, and he is trying to escape the attentions of this woman who's like not really taking his no for an answer, but like he's like pretty famous and like he doesn't want to be mean, and so he kisses Arya, or like asks Arya if they can kiss to like ward her off, and then they do that. He obviously is instantly obsessed with her because it's a Talia Hibbert book, which again I love, but it like very quickly domino effects into him hiring Arya to be his fake girlfriend and like beat back all of the people that are madly in love with him because he's just so famous and good at soccer and athletic and handsome, and he's just really shy and doesn't want to be mean to people. And so they strike a bargain because he's going to this, I guess, like extended vacation house party situation, instantly having a great time, already loving both of them so much. And Arya is just like, from the description and from like the limited POVs that we've gotten from her so far, and also from the cover, I am obsessed with her. I am truly obsessed with her already. She's like tattooed, she's got this platinum blonde bob, she's got the like lip piercing in the middle of her lip, the winged eyeliner. I'm like, oh, just be mean to me, step on me, literally shoot me in the face. I don't even care. That is my audiobook update. We finished The Roommate Risk. Love it. Highly recommend. And then also, I am officially 28% of the way into Lore of the Wilds, and I will say I am enjoying it more now that I'm like almost approaching the 30% mark. We're getting a little bit more of this like enchanted library and her exploring that library, and she has also met one of the love interests. He's like kind of her guard. He's like escorting her around this palace when she's not in the library, and they're like kind of maybe becoming friends a little bit. There are feelings being had, there's butterflies, there's like moments, a hand brushes another hand. So things are heating up in that arena, and that part of it I'm definitely enjoying. I just feel like there are questions that I have that I could see being answered, but if they aren't answered or aren't addressed in general, I am gonna be a little annoyed. There are still some parts of it where I'm just like, it feels like we're putting like one sentence toward a topic or line of investigation and then moving on to another thing, and I'm just like, wait, say more about that. Like, she discovers this one sort of magical aspect of the library, and there's like one little paragraph explaining how it works, and then the chapter ends, and then it starts with a completely different situation and day, and I'm just like, I want her to be like more fascinated with this magic she just uncovered, and I want to see her like experimenting with it or trying to use it. It's unexpected sometimes, the jumps that we make. That's all I really have to say about that, other than I am, like I said, enjoying it a little bit more. I read a good chunk of it today. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Hello, friends. It's been a few days since I have come on to update you about my reading progress. I think last time we talked, I had just finished The Roommate Risk and started The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco. And I am pleased to report that I have finished The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco. And I've also made some progress, some significant progress in Lore of the Wilds. So we've got lots to talk about. It's the 15th. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I hope you had a good day. Also, I don't know if I've showed off my Valentine's Day set yet, but I've got like these little chrome pink ones with baby hearts on them, and then my little middle fingers have this like heart with a little arrow through them. They're like a stained glass window vibe. Anyway, let's start with The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, because I did finish it literally the day after I started it, so it's been a few days since I finished it. What I can say, I loved it. I am happy to report that it is our first 5-star read of the reading vlog. I had so much fun. I loved Arya and Nick both instantly so much. Their story was great. It was really short. I think it was like an 8-hour audiobook, so it is fast. I will say that. So things are happening a little faster, expeditiously, so to speak, but it's good if you're like in the mood to pick up something and jump right into it and like read it really quickly, things like that. I do think some people might not love it because there is a little bit of an element of like insta love to a certain extent. Like basically as soon as Nick sees Arya for the first time, he's like, oh my god, I'm obsessed with you, I love you, I just like want to be around you. But he's like trying to play it cool because he knows that she is kind of like holding him at arm's length a little bit, and so he sort of makes up this reason for them to have to be together and be around each other, and that he needs a fake girlfriend to beat away all of his admirers with a stick while they're on this beach vacation. basically. I do think that if you hate or have strong feelings about like the insta love trope, you might not like it as much. But that being said, I don't think it's that over the top, and it is sort of addressed later on, like the fact that his instant infatuation with her does cause him to make some poor decisions, especially because Arya's previous relationship, this happens like off page before the book starts, but her previous relationship did not end well, which you find out information about that quite quickly. And so she, on top of the original just like holding him at arm's length, is dealing with a lot of that. But I thought that, you know, it was well, like both of their challenges towards meeting in the middle and having a positive relationship was dealt really well. It's very fun and silly and spicy and just a good time. It occurred to me that it might be helpful for me to give you spice ratings or just like some information about the spice for all of these books. So really quickly, for Through the Storm, I would give it like a 3-star spice level. It is open door, so there are on page smut scenes, but they're not very plentiful, and they're more like delicate, tasteful, not very like in the weeds with it, if you know what I mean. Then The Roommate Risk and The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, I would give both of those a 4 on the spice rating. There's plentiful scenes and descriptions of the spiciness involved. And then so far for Lore of the Wilds, for the first 70%, I would give it like a 1. There's not a whole lot going on, but like I feel like that's typical of romantasy. I highly recommend this Midnight Heat series. I am gonna eventually go back and read the first one, even though my friend didn't super love it. The first one I think is called The Princess Trap, so I'm excited for that. And then also I really want to make a point to read the Ravenswood series this year because it's getting re-released and independently published with new covers. Now let's talk about Lore of the Wilds, shall we? So I am on chapter 22. We are 71% of the way into this book. Let's talk about my thoughts and feelings on this so far as we reach the 70% mark. Also, I want to mention and have people keep this in mind, this is a duology, so there is one other book in the series called Lore of the Tides. Just as I'm thinking about this as a fantasy series, I'm just keeping that in mind, is that we should be on the pacing of a duology, not necessarily a trilogy or a longer series. Let's talk first about what I like, what I'm enjoying. I really like the world so far. It's interesting. Outside of the fact that Lore is a human and is from this human community. There's also Fae, obviously. But outside of the human and Fae dichotomy, we also have learned that there are other creatures as well. So you've got like sirens and nymphs and orcs, things of the like. We've also moved a little bit more through the world at this point in the book. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give a lot of the plot away, but we're seeing more of the world and I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the other places that Lore is experiencing for the first time. The whole magical library bit is interesting, and also I think that there is like a strong emphasis on stories and storytelling and the power of stories and just like Lore as sort of like this gatherer of stories. She's just constantly seeking them out and wanting more and more. And then I also am enjoying the romance. It is very, very slow burn, which I kind of expected. Also, up until like the 60% mark, there was really no second love interest, and I was about to come on and be like, yeah, I don't know if this actually is a love triangle. But then, of course, I spoke too soon and there is a love triangle. I do struggle with a love triangle. I don't know if it's because I grew up among like the Twilight Hunger Games era of it all. I am not really a fan of a love triangle unless it very quickly turns into a why choose romance situation. I just can't be bothered. So I'm a little worried about that, but that's a me problem that I knew going into this book. But yeah, the romantic moments and like the, you know, the brush of the hand here and like there's a kiss that happens. So like things are moving forward. I am enjoying those parts of it. Some issues or things that I'm struggling with. I mentioned this before, but there's just like a sensation that I have where like I'm reading and I feel as though based on what is happening, it feels as though I'm missing pages or chapters. Like I'm missing context to understand and be adequately invested in what's happening. And I think part of it is just like this forward movement and the pacing of it without a whole lot of structure. Especially knowing this is a duology, I just feel like at this point, 70% into the first book, we should know more about the magic system. Like we've seen people do magic. And obviously, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that there is a magic text that Lore eventually discovers in the Enchanted Library. So there's magic happening, but we don't really understand how people do magic, how different types of magic are used by different fae or different creatures, and just like how magic generally functions in the world. I feel like a lot of what's happening is just riding on people's understanding of magic as like a very broad concept. But from my experience with reading fantasy and romantasy is I want a little more structure to the magic system and to understand it, especially because Lore is so desperately invested in getting her own magic to help the humans and also just to have magic. Also, Lore as a main character just feels a little bit disjointed, honestly. I feel like she has such different motivations and like in any given chapter, she will present in a different way, but I'm not following the logic of it, if that makes sense. I don't know. She's also just like constantly making stupid decisions. I feel like I kind of want to just shake her a little bit. So yeah, I'm liking it. I don't know where it's going to go. I do want to find out what happens. I do think that the last 30% of this book is really going to determine whether or not I continue with the series. I am going to read a little bit more. I really want to finish this so I can start reading Forbidden. We'll talk soon. Peace out. Hello. Okay, it's a few hours since I last updated you, but I have finished Lore of the Wilds, so I figured I would pop on before I go to bed. The last 30% went a lot faster than I was expecting. I will say right off the bat, literally the first chapter that I read after updating you last time, we did get a little more information and a little bit more of a breakdown on the magic system in the world. So I guess I kind of can eat my words on that a little bit, but we didn't get as much as I was hoping. Just a little bit, just a little taste of, you know, the different kinds of magic and how people use magic. But Lore has some unique abilities that not any of the fae have when it comes to magic. The final arc, the third act of this story was pretty explosive. I will say there is a pretty wild plot twist and cliffhanger at the end that I personally did not see coming. I did read a couple reviews and some people were like, I totally knew it. I had no idea. I was suspicious of things, sure. And I had a lot of questions, but that's not what I was expecting the answer to be. There's a couple pretty big reveals at the end that are interesting, but ultimately the last chapter is pretty wild. So I do think that I am going to pick up the second book. Definitely not in this video, and I don't know if I'm going to pick it up super soon, but it is a series that I want to continue with because I am curious. But yeah, overall, I don't think the last third of the book really changed a lot of my general gripes. Lore just makes a lot of really dumb decisions. Stubborn, but also just like really not at all well thought out. And there's just like things happen so fast because I feel like there's so much being packed into this first book that you don't really get to understand or spend appropriate or desired amount of time on any one thing. I did read a couple other reviews that kind of agree with my general sentiment that it reads like a YA. It definitely is not a YA, and there is one on page spicy scene. So I would give it like, I guess like a 2-star on the spice scale. There's really not a lot. It's mostly just like yearning looks and like heated exchanges of glances. But definitely the least spicy of all the books that we've read so far in the video. I think my final rating, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you like romantasy, I do recommend it. I guess just like keep in mind the things that I said. With that, I will talk to you probably tomorrow. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Peace out. Hello. Okay, here's the plan. I finished the puzzle I was doing yesterday, which means it's time to start a new puzzle. So I thought I would sort out the edge pieces while I give you an update. I have lots of updates on both of our Forbidden Love themed romances for the end of this video. So I am 100 pages into the physical book for Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. And I am also at exactly 50% of the way through the audiobook for You Made a Fool of Just Your Beauty by Akwaeke and Emezi. So I have lots to talk about. Let's start with Forbidden because I have less to say about that as I'm only like 24-ish% of the way through. So Forbidden is obviously a forbidden romance between our main characters, Rhine Fontaine and Edie Carmichael. So Rhine is, if you remember me mentioning this earlier, the brother of Sable, who is the female main character in Through the Storm. And this takes place after Through the Storm in 1870, I think, in the West. So it's like a Wild West, Western kind of book. I think the series is called Old West. And so Rhine Fontaine is a saloon owner in, I think, Nevada, and he is passing as white after he and his half-brother Andrew ran away and deserted the army. He decided to start passing as white. We do get a little bit about that in Through the Storm, and him and Sable like talking about that and his decision and his choice to do that. And anyway, so at the beginning of the book, we're introduced to Edie Carmichael, who is our female main character. She's living in Denver, but has been saving up money to move west and start her own restaurant. She's a chef, and her goal is to have her own restaurant one day. And then immediately, like the first page of the book, she gets robbed and her train ticket and all of her savings are taken from her. So then she's kind of like, you know, exchanging her cooking services for passage with various people, getting closer and closer to moving west from Denver. She meets a couple people who are very helpful and a couple people who are not so helpful, specifically one person who ends up robbing her again and leaving her for dead in the desert. And so she is like walking through the desert and ends up passing out because of the heat and is rescued by Ryan and his business partner Jim because they just happen to be traveling on this road and they see her and they're like, oh my gosh, this woman's gonna die. So they rescue her, bring her back to the saloon and are like bringing her back from the brink. So instantly there's chemistry between Rhine Fontaine and Edie Carmichael. They are obviously interested in each other, but because he's passing as white, Edie believes that he is a white man, and so like their relationship, like she's like, oh, this wouldn't work. Also, like then she finds out he has this fiance, but she decides and is welcomed into a boarding house in the community because they need a chef. They just recently lost their cook. That's kind of the general setup of the plot right now. They've interacted a little bit right off the bat. I do enjoy their interactions a lot. Edie's feisty and like absolutely hates being like on bed rest. She cannot sit still. And so like Ryan is like, oh my God, you're so stubborn. Like, let me carry you to the bathroom so you can pee. And she's like, I can walk myself. And they're just kind of like teasing each other. There's a little bit of banter. I'm really, really hoping that we get another Ryan and Sable reunion in this book because kind of when they leave each other and Through the Storm, they're basically like, I don't know if or when I'm ever gonna see you again. I'm really liking it. 100 pages in, hoping to read it quickly. It does read fast. It's just that like I'm really only reading it at night before bed. Obviously, it's a little bit slow going. But now let us pivot to You Made a Fool of Death Through Beauty. So I think I maybe mentioned this earlier, but I had started the audiobook for this and I listened to like the first 15 or 20% like a year or 2 years ago. And I really liked it, but I think my hold ran out at the time and I just like didn't continue with it because my library hold ran out. But I am absolutely loving it so far. Like I said, we're at 50%, but this is Akwaeke Emezi's contemporary romance story. We're following our main character, Faye, and at the beginning of the book, it has been 5 years since her husband passed in a car accident that both of them were in and that she survives. And so a huge part of the book and a lot of the plot is her reckoning with not only losing the love of her life, but also with her being the person who survived and being alive after the accident and being without him and existing and being alive as she is right now. So a lot of the book is just such a tribute to the urgency of life, not necessarily like a zest for life, but like I guess a little bit that is just like she, even though she's constantly reckoning with the grief that she holds and constantly confronting that, especially as at the beginning of the book she's trying to sort of get back on the casual dating, sleeping around scene. She's trying to like get back out there, so to speak. It's calling up a lot within her, but also at the same time just constantly reminding herself that she gets to make choices and she is here, and so therefore she is alive and must live. The general plot of the book is, as I said at the beginning of the story, she's looking to get back out there on the dating scene, but obviously she's got a lot of roadblocks within herself that she's aware of that she has to work on. She meets a couple guys. She meets this one guy that she's dating for a little bit, and then she has a really strong connection with his friend, so they start sort of hanging out, but she doesn't really want to put a formal label on it. She's not sure if she's ready for the intimacy that goes along with a more serious relationship like that. So they decide to be friends. And also an important thing to note is that Faye is an artist. So she and this man Nasir start to strike up this friendship, and he's very interested in her art because his dad is an art collector and he is from the islands, and so he offers to take her to his childhood home because there's an art exhibit that he has entered her in, and basically she gets to display her art in an installation at this art show. And so they're going to be staying with his dad, and instantly Faye is drawn to his dad, Alim. Obviously, forbidden romance, your kind of friend, kind of like maybe eventually was gonna be something more, like a boyfriend, brings you home to meet his dad and you think his dad's hot. It is an age gap romance, obviously, and there's some tension. I'm nervous because obviously nobody really knows yet that she has this attraction other than her. Right off the bat, she's physically attracted to him. But also, Alim, who is Nasir's dad, has also lost his wife, who is Nasir's mom, in an accident. She drowned when the kids were in their teen years, I think. And so they speak about their experiences together of losing a loved one in such a traumatic and like visceral fashion. So they're not bonding over that, but they see the grief in the other person, and they see the other person trying and succeeding at living a life while holding that within themselves. And I think that on top of the physical attraction that Faye feels for him, there's also that other quality to their relationship as well. And I'm stressed. I don't know how it's gonna resolve. I just am assuming that this is not gonna be received well by Nasir, who clearly thinks at some point he and Faye are gonna get together. I cannot say enough about Akwaeke Emezi's writing. They are just one of the most brilliant writers of their generation. I think it's just everything that they write is so spectacular. The writing is lush, it's decadent, it's also unexpected in some ways. Like, just there's some descriptions sometimes where I have to pause and just sit with the way that they decide to use a turn of phrase, or the way that they decide to describe something. Like, there's so many points of the book where Faye is about to make a decision that we as the reader might think is questionable, might think is wrong or whatever. And in her mind, Faye is thinking, this is probably a bad idea, but I'm alive, and so I'm gonna do it. She really is reclaiming a lot of agency and a lot of autonomy that I think probably living through the traumatic event and also losing her husband took a lot of that feeling of control over one's life away, because her entire future was the way that she expected it to be was robbed from her in that moment. I love it so much. It's so good, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really glad that I picked it up. I think right now I'm gonna keep doing this puzzle for a little bit and listen to a little bit of it. Peace out. Okay, we're not going to comment on the fact that the bed is unmade because I don't make my bed every day. I'm only human. Anyways, it's the next day, and on my way home from work today, I finished the audiobook for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi, and it is so good. It was so good. It was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever read. Honestly, might be my new favorite, Akwaeke Emezi. The second half is really, the whole thing is emotional, but the second half is definitely emotional and very tense because obviously at some point Nasir and his sister Lorraine find out about the bond and the relationship that is blossoming between Faye and Alim. Again, I cannot stress enough how beautiful and gut-wrenching and just stunning this book is. It's a celebration of life and the decision to live your life after something that really puts your whole plan and your structure of your day-to-day life on pause, on a hold, that really changes fundamentally who you are and how you move in the world. It's done so well, and their coming together is just amazing. It is a romance, but it's also just, it's got like that literary fiction quality to it where it is just like making observations about life and the way that we move in different spaces, and art and food, because Alim is a cook. There's so much about food and food as an art, and Faye as a visual artist. I can't recommend it enough. Also, I love Faye as a main character. To be clear, I'm obsessed with her, but I want to burn the world down for Alim Blake. I love his character so much, and I think what Emezi is doing with his character is just so brilliant, and it almost like threatens to slide under the radar because most of the work as it is in Faye's perspective is following her journey, but at the same time you're also getting this information about Alim's past and what he has had to sacrifice and give up. There's so much commentary on him as a parent and stepping into the shoes as a single parent after he loses his wife and having to be everything for his kids, and what he willingly sacrificed, but sacrificed nonetheless. And now that they are grown and adults in their own right, he's just trying to find something that's his. And he struggles a little bit, I think, with being perceived in his community, especially because he's also he's a really famous chef, like he's been on TV. So his personhood, he's very androgynous and bisexual, and he runs into a couple instances in his life, especially with his kids and relationships after his wife passes, where there's tension with who he is and his identity and how that interacts with his celebrity, and also how it interacts with his role as a parent and the expectations that are set at his feet as the patriarch of the family. And I think it's just so beautiful how Emezi works through all of that. Anyway, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly, highly recommend. I have not read any more Forbidden since we talked last, but that's the priority for the rest of the video. So we're just gonna be chipping away at that. Talk soon. Bye.
Hello friends. Okay, it's time for my final update of the reading vlog because I have finished Forbidden. I really enjoyed myself. I found it to be very entertaining. I loved all of the side characters. I really liked the plot. It's definitely a really, really slow burn. Honestly, maybe a little bit too slow of a burn for me personally, but I really loved Edie and Ryan as main characters, and I liked their chemistry. I just think I wanted a few more scenes of their back and forth and a few more scenes of like their intense yearning for each other. She does a great job of discussing the nuances and like the positives and the negatives when you are passing as white. As a person of color, like Ryan really has to accept some difficult things in his life because no one really knows about his identity, but he also, on the other hand, uses his privilege and the money that he's able to make while he's passing to funnel that back into the Black community in the town that he lives in. So I really enjoyed the discussion of that. I also really liked the time period and the setting in the West. And I read the author's note, and Ryan's Saloon is actually based on an archaeological dig that happened in the early 2000s that Beverly Jenkins researched, where they found evidence of a Black-owned saloon. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm gonna give it a 4-star, and then I would give it honestly like a 2 on the spice scale. I think this and Lore of the Wilds are definitely the least spicy books that we read in this video. Also, I don't remember if I gave you a spice rating for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, but I think I would give it a 3. Even though it does open with a smut scene, I think a lot of people will probably start it and be like, Addie, what are you talking about? But more or less, it is bookended by a little bit of spice, but then there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in the middle. Also, because I gave Forbidden a 4-star, I don't want to give it less than a 4-star, but I do think I enjoyed Through the Storm much more. So I think I would bump Through the Storm up to like a 4.5, maybe even a 5-star, honestly. Now that like I've sat with it for a little while, I really, really love that. I do think I'm gonna prioritize moving forward. I want to finish the Levesque series first, and then I'll probably circle back and read the rest of the Old West series. I also want to petition. I feel like when I look at my romance TBR, I am significantly lacking in Black authored romances by male Black authors, specifically queer male Black authored romances. So if you have any good recommendations, please put them down in the comments below, because I am definitely noticing a gap and I will definitely be searching for some myself. I know Kasoko Jackson immediately comes to mind. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed. I love you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's your jam, and I hope to see you in my next video. Happy reading, happy writing, and happy living. Peace out.